In 2016, I ran my first marathon in 3 hours and 54 minutes, and in 2023, I ran my 9th marathon in 2 hours and 40 minutes. Today, I'm going to be breaking down that journey from the 354 to the 240, showing you that this path certainly hasn't been linear, and of course, talking all about my arch nemesis, which is fueling. Now, for me, marathons are probably the hardest running distance to master when it comes to being able to hold pace and manage energy levels. And being completely honest, I don't think I'm close to mastering it, but I do feel I've managed to get a grip on a few elements which have massively helped with race day performance and allowed me to get closer to my potential over the distance. So today I'm going to break it down from the first race to now and share with you guys what I feel are the most important elements that I've managed to succeed in. So let's talk mileage. When I was running Gloucester Marathon, I was averaging in and around 30 to 35 miles a week, whereas my recent marathon is more like 60 to 70 on average and topping out slightly over. Now, that is obviously nearly double mileage, but I don't want you to take that at face value and go, oh, he's doubled his mileage. That means that's how he's got to where he's got to. That mileage increase has happened in very small increments over a long period of time. And there's been two ways I've done that. Effectively, I've gone in 2016, it was around 30 to 35. And then the next year, 35 to 40, 40 to 40, 45 to 50, 50 to 55, 55 to 60. I've just taken small steps throughout the years to get to where I am now. And when I'm actually comfortable with that volume of mileage, that next step up, I then push that mileage to see what I can get out of it. So I might increase the intensity. I might then increase the number of workouts I do a week. So then it becomes, rather than, oh, I've now stepped up the mileage, 2 or 3 months after that step up, it's then what can I get out of that mileage? How can I get more specific with that mileage? How can I squeeze more juice out of that mileage, if that makes sense? So it's been a very small incremental steps over the years, but it's been worth the wait and worth being patient, because as you guys know, when you increase volume or intensity at such a big rate, if you want to take a massive step up, has a much greater chance of getting injured. So I feel like it's made my body more robust over the years to just take that small step and then squeeze more juice out of that mileage, and then take the next step, squeeze more juice, and keep going forward like that. So the next big step I took was improving the performance over my long run. They suddenly ditched from my plan of being easy long runs and became either moderate long runs or long run workouts. When I was in a specific plan phase, I still had times when I used to run easy long runs, but when I started to marathon train a bit more seriously, I started adapting those to become moderate long runs or long run workouts. This massively helped the next step in my marathon journey, taking my time down to in and around that 3:15 area. Now, that wasn't all, the marathons I ran at that time were never particularly great in the 3:14, and they still went horribly wrong because of my fueling, but I was at such a fitness level where I was running a bad marathon and it was happening to be around that 3:14 mark. I ran a 3:14 in a time trial I did here myself. The video's on the channel if you go way back to 2017. I then ran the OMM Forest of Dean trail marathon, which ended up being a 3:54, but that was a trail marathon, so that was completely different. And then my next sub 3 attempt in Newport in 2019 ended up being 3:14. Yeah, it didn't go to plan. Yet once again, fueling bit me in the backside, but again, a bad marathon ended up being 3:14. So I knew I'd made big progress, and that was all down to really focusing a little bit more on that long run workout, those moderate long runs, and of course, I'd already taken that next 1 or 2 steps up in terms of mileage. And number 3 was a massive turning point for me, because this tip right here got me over the line and ran my first sub 3, which happened to be in the autumn of the year that I ran 3:14 at Newport in 2019. So then in October, I ran Abingdon Marathon and ran 2:59. And again, I faded. Fueling was better, but it still wasn't right. But again, I got myself to the fitness level that I could crack 3 hours. What was that thing? Well, it was all about learning what marathon effort felt like, not marathon pace. I talk a lot on this channel about learning and understanding your body, what certain efforts feel like, dialing into a pace and going, can I hold this for 26.2 miles? And then going, right, well, that pace is what it is, because this is the effort level that I feel I can hold for 26.2 miles. I knew at that point at Abingdon when I went for it that I just had to go out there and run what I felt comfortable, and that got me through the first 18, 19, 20 miles of that race feeling really good. And that was because I trusted, not my watch, but I trusted what my body was telling me. Fueling let me down once again, and that came to bite me in the backside, but I'd taken that big step and I walked away from Abingdon over the moon that I'd broken 3 hours. But secondly, I got to a point where I started to understand what marathon effort felt like. And the fourth thing I now need to mention is fueling. Yep, we're going to tackle that demon. I only half got this right at this point, and I've made much more or bigger steps forward more recently, but that allowed me to then run a 2:44 at Shepherd Island Marathon in October 2020. So let me talk about those steps there that happened for me to do that. Well, it was just simply a case of buying gels and practicing in training, getting my stomach used to it. Now, I have a bit of a sensitive stomach. I know a lot of runners do, and I know a lot of runners don't. They can chuck whatever they want in their stomach and it's fine. For me, it's just not the case. But I found and stumbled across Unived gels, and at that time, they were the only gel that I could use to get me through a marathon. And I was practicing and practicing and practicing them in training all the time on my long runs. Not as much as I have been more recently, but I was just making a point of getting them in my system and making sure my stomach can handle them. On the actual day of the Shepherd Island Marathon, when I ran 2:44, I managed to sink 5 Unived gels, which was incredible. I still crashed around mile 23, but it was a big step forward. And that was a point when I knew that I just had to take this more seriously. But sadly, I didn't take my own advice. In the next couple of marathons after that, I still hadn't mastered it until more recently and put an even bigger emphasis and focus on fueling. But that was a big step forward and a bit of an eye-opener as to what fueling does. So my advice to you guys, again, if you're at that point and you keep bonking towards the end of a race, it's about practicing in training, getting your body used to gels, getting your body used to taking on fluids. Just keep going, keep persevering. It's worth it in the end, because when you get it right, you'll be able to go from the start to the finish holding that same energy level. And the fifth thing I want to mention is race simulators. This again took me to that next level for my 7th, 8th and 9th marathon. And although my 7th and 8th in terms of time-wise didn't go too well, I felt as fit as I had ever done when I approached each of those marathons. In terms of race simulators, what do I mean? Well, it could mean a couple of things. It was either practicing dedicated race pace for a specific period of time. In my more recent training block, that was 16 miles at marathon pace, and also having other workouts where I was dialing into marathon pace, or it was a workout that was to work in and around marathon pace, but I was trying to fuel and practice like I was running a marathon, so fueling every 20-25 minutes, drinking, doing what I could to simulate the race. And again, the heavy emphasis on this for me has been in this more recent training block, which is where I've taken the biggest step forward. It can also mean getting up at marathon time, having the right breakfast, doing everything that you're going to do on a marathon morning, especially in marathon 7, 8 and 9. I did this at least once, and in a couple of the blocks twice, just to make sure I was happy. Now, I follow that routine whether I'm running a 10K or a marathon. I eat the same stuff at the same time every time. So I knew that my body could handle it. But again, when you do it in training and you execute a good run and it feels really good, again, it's just such a massive mental boost. So piecing all of these things together that we've talked about so far and then simulating it in training just gives you another step forward with confidence. When you nail it, it feels great. And the sixth thing that has massively helped me throughout my whole marathon journey so far is actually having breaks from the marathon distance itself. I know it sounds a little bit strange and not everyone wants to do it, but for me, it's been key. So what do I mean by that? Well, I like to train for 10Ks and half marathons as well as marathons. And when I get down to training for that sort of 5, 10K area, you're putting a lot more emphasis on speed, more so than speed endurance. You're still doing speed endurance work, but you're doing a lot more top end work that you might not necessarily do in marathon training. So if this is your fitness and this is your base fitness here and this is your top, when you're doing 10K training, you're just trying to nudge that ceiling up a little bit and then bring the rest up, and then nudge that ceiling up a little bit and then bring it up, so your overall fitness over time goes up. Now, I often find, and have done in the past, back-to-back marathon blocks, and I usually find after the second block that I'm feeling really sluggish and I really want a bit of speed, and I do find that I do lose a bit of speed and it takes me a while to get it back. I find if I drop a 10K or a half marathon block in between marathon blocks, it's made the world of difference, because I then feel like I go into the next marathon block fitter and faster than the last one, and it's all part of the progress of the sport in terms of your fitness. You want to get that fitness up so that you can bring everything else up. Keep notching it up and up and up and up, and it just goes up and up like this. So overall, if you think about it, we've increased a lot of volume, we've done a lot more specific intensity, we've switched our long runs up, we've done some race simulators, and now we're taking breaks from it once we've done that so that we can focus on other areas of our fitness. So when we come back and can repeat that whole cycle, our whole marathon fitness and our marathon journey just gets a little bit faster and faster every time. Oh, and it would be wrong of me to leave this video on a note where I didn't mention strength and conditioning, because this is something I've been doing now for 8 months and I'm continuing. I've got myself into a groove and it is feeling great. This has made a massive difference and been one of the main reasons why I was able to run that 240. This is comprised for me personally of a lot of core work and a lot of back work. I'm a taller runner, my back often suffers, and it has helped massively. Strength and conditioning for you guys can look completely different, and it can just be general all-round cross training or doing something different. Whatever it is, working on those weaknesses massively helps. It's not something that I wanted to dive in too much to today because I've only been doing it now for 8 months, but I committed to it at the start of my last marathon block, went and ran a 240, and I'm now straight back into the thick of it, training for my 10K. So I've got to say, it has been a massive help. I will say exactly what I said in my previous video as I will now, which is I feel like a hypocrite if I mentioned it and talked and banged the drum on it too much because I've not been doing it long enough. But I can already see in such a short space of time that I have been doing it, it has made the world of difference. And if you're interested in following along with my training journey, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I do drop a video every Sunday with my training journey. At the moment, training for a 32-minute 10K, had to think then. And once that journey's done, which will be end of July, I'll be jumping back into a marathon journey where I'll be taking you guys along with me. So that's it for today, guys. And make sure I pop a couple of useful videos on screen for you now that you can follow on from this one. If you're interested in watching more, please do click through to those and have a watch of those. But for now, that's it for this one, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do consider giving it a like and sharing it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Until then.